There are some beautiful cities in the US. And then there are some where local school districts use a flag system to let people know if they can breathe the air outside that day. In one city, the water is completely undrinkable, while in another, you're gonna be slammed by dust storms. These are 40 US cities that are in the worst possible spot. Number 40. Bullhead City, Arizona. Usually, cities have to deal with intense heat and droughts or flooding. But what if you found a city that dealt with both? Enter Bullhead City, Arizona. Its odd and extreme weather is partly due to its unique location in the Mojave Desert, yet on the Colorado River. On average, temperatures will reach 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 37.7 Celsius, around 135 days a year. Worse yet, as temperatures are also rising over time, by 2050, the temperature will pass 113 degrees Fahrenheit, 45 Celsius, approximately 42 days a year. Almost a month and a half. However, maybe some residents can cool down when their homes flood, as 37% of Bullhead City homes are at risk of flooding from the nearby river, and 85% of buildings are at risk of wildfire. Insurance companies have a field day here. Number 39. Kansas City, Kansas. One good thing you can say about Kansas City is that housing is cheap. The bad thing is that housing is cheap because it seems that not a lot of people want to live there. Kansas City has the strange distinction of having fewer bars, museums, libraries, recreational centers, and restaurants than the US as a whole, even though it's a metro area. There are 120 restaurants per 100,000 Kansas City residents, and it has one of the lowest restaurants per capita of any city in the US. Perhaps the city's biggest problem is that it's right across the state border from and almost part of Kansas City, Missouri, which is generally considered a much more fun town. That's why 150,000 people live in Kansas City, Kansas, while Kansas City, Missouri has attracted over 500,000. Number 38. Hartford, Connecticut. Most locals and residents in Hartford think of it more like an office park to be commuted into than an actual city with amenities people want to use. And in the generally wealthy state of Connecticut, Hartford somehow manages to have a poverty rate of 25.5%. In fact, it usually ranks in the 10 poorest cities in the country. The city was once a hub for manufacturing and insurance, and while some insurance companies remain, a lot of jobs have shifted outwards. In turn, Hartford lost 13% of its population in the 1990s alone, almost equal to the percentage of jobs that moved out at that time. This led to failing public schools thanks to a smaller tax base and fewer opportunities for new generations to get better jobs. Number 37. Amarillo, Texas. If you're looking for a city to sweep you off your feet, head to Amarillo, Texas, because the wind just might do that. Amarillo has been declared the windiest city in the US, as it sits in the middle of the Great Plains area. For those who hate dry conditions, dust storms kicking up all the time, or who suffer from allergies, Amarillo is like its own special version of hell. Worse yet, when the wind is blowing from a specific direction, i.e. from the general area of the cow pastures near it, the smell of manure often permeates the air. Number 36. New York City, New York. New York is famously the city that never sleeps, but in fact, some people like sleeping. But good luck getting those Z's if you're in New York, as it easily outranks every other urban area in the US as the noisiest city in the country. It has the highest population density by far, with just over 29,000 people per square mile. 3 times the nightlife venues of any other US city, and a lot of public transit shaking the ground day and night. If all that weren't enough, about 3,000 flights per day pass right over the city coming from 3 different major NYC area airports. Even with the strongest earplugs in the world, that's a lot to keep you awake. No wonder New Yorkers get a reputation for being cranky. Number 35. Fargo, North Dakota. Best known for starring in a Frances McDormand movie, Fargo is the biggest city in North Dakota. But perhaps more problematically than that, Fargo, with only 133,000 people, is the biggest city by far for hours in any direction. It's 253 miles, 407 kilometers to Minneapolis-St. Paul, and 390 miles, 628 kilometers to Omaha, Nebraska, a 6-hour drive. In fact, Winnipeg, Canada is technically the closest big city, 209 miles, 336 kilometers away. As one resident puts it online, it is geographically one of the most boring and uninspiring places in the United States. It's flat and windy and cold, and while it's decently safe with good education systems, there just isn't much to do. Getting around in the winter months can be kind of a hassle as well, with snow on the ground from about mid-November to mid-April. Number 34. Los Angeles, California. LA has a lot going for it. Sunshine and pleasant temperatures almost year-round, the Pacific Ocean, and palm trees, just to name a few. But in addition to an out-of-control cost of living crisis, it also ranks as the most polluted and smog-filled place in the US. Not to mention the increasing effects of climate change on the city. There are extended droughts affecting water supply and usage in the country's second-largest metro area, and wildfires making many homes almost uninsurable is making life in the city harder year by year. The average price of a home is $1 million. Well, $978,157 if you want to be exact. And since the median savings balance for US households was $8,000 as of 2022, it means the average American can buy a home here never. Number 33. Fairbanks, Alaska. There are some great things to do in Fairbanks. See the Northern Lights, go dog sledding, and freeze to death far away from any major urban population centers. As pretty as a visit to the city can be, living here is a very different story. First of all, while you might imagine Alaska having some of the cleanest air in the country, that's definitely not the case in Fairbanks. The American Lung Association ranked Fairbanks as one of the most polluted cities for year-round particle pollution. This is mostly thanks to wildfire smoke in the summer and constant wood burning in the winter. At least there's not much reason to be outside, as Fairbanks also ranks as the coldest city in the US. In January, the minimum average temperature is negative 8.3 degrees Fahrenheit, negative 22.4 degrees Celsius, a temperature at which doctors recommend you to stay out for no longer than 30 minutes to avoid frostbite. So if the pollution doesn't get you in Fairbanks, the cold might. Number 32. Dallas, Texas. As in many Texas urban areas, it seems Dallas forgot to put the city in their city. It's an endless sprawl of cookie-cutter suburban neighborhoods with very few amenities for a city of 1.3 million. It's also located on the flat Texas scrublands that makes it extremely hot during June to September, with temperatures over 90 degrees Fahrenheit for 143 days a year on average, and prone to high winds and ice storms in the winter. And any winter storms also tend to make the power grid break down, as Texas is the only state that insists on running its own electrical grid. As one resident says, Dallas has everything you need and nothing you want. Oh, and Dallas is also located in the southern region of Tornado Alley, so it has that going for it. Number 31. Stockton, California. Both Interstate 5 and Highway 99 run right through Stockton, connecting it to the Bay Area, the state capital of Sacramento, and LA. But these highways also accelerated Stockton's deterioration. Highway 99 passed by the rundown sections of Stockton, not its active port or shady, tree-lined residential streets that city managers would rather showcase. Because of the high volume of Californians that drove this route, Stockton had acquired a bad reputation. So, developers decided to build I-5 in the 70s, destroy long-standing, mostly minority communities, and let the city's downtown decay in favor of showing off the nice parts. Then, Stockton rapidly expanded north along the freeway, with many low-density, single-family homes that severely strained city resources, eventually leading to Stockton being branded the foreclosure capital of the world. Number 30. Youngstown, Ohio. Since the 1950s, Youngstown has experienced a 65% drop in population. From just over 168,000 people in 1950, the population dropped to around 58,000 as of 2025. Poverty and crime in the area is relatively high, So why has Youngstown been hit so hard? Well, the city lies on the Mahoning River, which was previously the heart of America's steel production, with 22 miles 35 kilometers of steel mills on its banks, until September 19th, 1977, which became known as Black Monday in the steel industry, as increased automation and foreign imports started shuttering businesses. That was the day Youngstown Sheet and Tube fired 5,000 workers at once. Then, U.S. Steel shut down Ohio Works, also in Youngstown, leaving 2,800 workers out of a job. And Jones and Laughlin Steel Corporation followed suit. Within a decade, 50,000 Youngstown jobs, most of them in steel, were eliminated. Number 29. New Orleans, Louisiana. Hurricanes have repeatedly devastated New Orleans, which has the unfortunate distinction of both being right on the Gulf of Mexico and incredibly low in elevation. This means hurricanes are more likely to hit, and when they do, the city floods. The most devastating hurricane in the last 20 years was Hurricane Katrina, which caused $160 billion in damage to the city. When you're not getting slammed by nature's rage, thanks to the large bodies of water nearby, you're still living in the most humid city in the US, with an average humidity of 75.9%, otherwise known as unbearable. Number 28. Albuquerque, New Mexico. Perhaps there's a reason why Breaking Bad was set in Albuquerque. It's one of the most dangerous cities in the country, with a violent crime rate of 51 per 1,000 residents, as opposed to 22.7 in the entire country. That means in any given year living in Albuquerque, you have a 5% chance of becoming the victim of a violent crime. That's partly due to the city being relatively close to the US-Mexico border and the drug trafficking business that thrives there, as well as producing plenty of homegrown drugs. Number 27. Wilmington, North Carolina. Though Cape Hatteras bears the distinction of being the community with the most hurricanes per decade at 7.5, there are barely 500 people left there, probably as a result of repeated hurricanes slamming into their town. So calling it a city seems a little much. But Wilmington, with a population over 120,000 and 6 hurricanes bearing down on it per decade, fits the description much better. The most devastating hurricane on record, Hurricane Florence in 2018, not only caused $17 billion in damage throughout the state, but effectively cut Wilmington off as roads into the peninsula were blocked. Number 26. Erie, Pennsylvania. A city on a lake might sound dreamy, but that's not the case with Erie, Pennsylvania. Named after Lake Erie, whose shores it sits on, Erie has undergone a massive economic decline since its main industry, manufacturing, left it, which may be why the city now has a 26.2% poverty rate, over twice the national average. But that's far from Erie's only issue. It has a geographic problem as well. Like many Great Lakes border towns, Erie gets something called lake effect snow. When cold, dry air passes over warm water, it tends to dump snow on the other side. The city gets an average of 101 inches, 257 centimeters of snow per year, and in recent years has often been experiencing way more than that. In 2017 to 2018, the town got pelted with 166 inches, 422 centimeters of snow. Number 25. Flint, Michigan. Flint made headlines a few years ago for having undrinkable, contaminated water. But what you might not know is that things weren't going well besides that. Its location was once a big boost to its residents. What started as a lumbering area eventually became known as Vehicle City when General Motors was founded in Flint in 1908. Its GM manufacturing plant alone offered 30,000 jobs, and other auto jobs sprang up everywhere around it. But when the auto industry disappeared, the town that had been built up around it went downhill rapidly. Number 24. Bakersfield, California. Bakersfield ranks first as the most polluted city in the US. There are particles called PM 2.5, particles of 2.5 micrometers or less, that indicate how much air pollution a city has. Bakersfield has an annual average concentration of 18.8 micrograms per cubic meter. The World Health Organization recommends a PM 2.5 measurement of no more than 5 micrograms per cubic meter for long-term exposure. Though LA is famous for its smog, inland Southern California cities actually get it a lot worse. Bakersfield is in a valley parallel to the coast, trapped between the Sierra Nevada and Coast Mountain ranges. So the pollution from LA drifts inwards and then gets caught between the mountains. Local schools have to use flags to tell students how bad the pollution is any given day. Green is okay, red is bad, and purple is even worse. Number 23, St. Louis, Missouri. St. Louis, known for its famous arch, the Cardinals baseball team, and being the murder capital of the US. The homicide rate in St. Louis is 54.4 per 100,000 people, well above the average US homicide rate of 7.5. The overall violent crime rate is 1,817 per 100,000. St. Louis got hit hard by the manufacturing decline and is currently in a population freefall. As if that weren't enough, St. Louis may have one of the worst climates of any major city. What kind of weather gets on your nerves? Oppressive heat? Freezing cold? Storms? Humidity? Good news, St. Louis has it all. Because of its central position in the country, St. Louis gets hit by both Arctic cold and tropical fronts from the Gulf of Mexico. Number 22, Gastonia, North Carolina. Gastonia was once a hub of textile manufacturing, but when those jobs vanished in the 1990s, the town was left with soaring unemployment, deep poverty, and a crime rate on par with Chicago's roughest neighborhoods, just without any of the big city perks to balance it out. The problem is that residents had issues moving on to other options. Working in the textile mills didn't require a high degree of education, so other more white-collar jobs that moved into the area were harder for people to move into. In fact, 13.3% of Gastonia's population is functionally illiterate. Though with people being priced out of nearby Charlotte, the town is on a little bit of an upswing. It still has a long way to go, though. Number 21. Lubbock, Texas. There is an entire website called LubbockSucks.com dedicated to how much Lubbock sucks. That's how much hate former and current residents have for the area. Partly, it's because of the city's location in the middle of West Texas. As you will soon see with other cities on this list, West Texas is a difficult place to live, and that goes triple for anyone with allergies. The landscape is very flat, very windy, and very dusty, making things like breathing clean air or keeping anything outside your house clean an impossible feat. Lubbock has haboobs, intense dust storms several times a year, sometimes with hurricane-force winds of over 60 miles an hour. But instead of bringing torrential rain, it just raises 100-foot walls of dust. Number 20, San Bernardino, California. 6 of the worst 10 zip codes in the country when it comes to insurance non-renewals are all located in San Bernardino, mostly thanks to more and more devastating wildfires, year after year. However, blizzards play a part as well in the winter. Conditions like these have driven many people and businesses out, leading to a 32.6% poverty rate and a slow-to-dead job market. Since the city is in bad shape, some residents seek black market work or illegal relief in the form of meth, making the city and the area of the Inland Empire that surrounds it the methamphetamine capital of the United States. Number 19, Atlantic City, New Jersey. Once upon a time, Atlantic City's geography helped it grow. It was a fun seaside retreat, with a lively boardwalk as well as shops and restaurants along the beach. Now, it's known more for people smoking at slot machines in rundown casinos. In the early 20th century, people living in the Northeast went to Atlantic City as a resort destination. However, as flights to the Caribbean and Florida got super cheap, and people realized beaches in Turks and Caicos were better than coastal New Jersey, Atlantic City lost its attractiveness. In the late 1970s, the town decided to start building up casinos to get some tourists back. And it did, but cities that rely on gambling, especially if they're already on a downswing, tend to develop other problems like crime, addiction, and poverty. Currently, Atlantic City has a 33% poverty rate and a crime rate of 87 per 1,000 people. Number 18. Mobile, Alabama. When you think of the country's rainiest cities, you may imagine places like Portland or Seattle, but the rainiest city in the US is by far Mobile, Alabama. In case you're the kind of person that thinks, great, I love the rain, you should know that might not apply in Mobile, where 21.6% of the population is depressed. Also, that rain sometimes includes hurricanes, since Mobile has the unfortunate geographic luck of sitting right on the Gulf of America, formerly known as the Gulf of Mexico. But don't worry, it doesn't rain all of the time. Some days you'll only have to deal with crushing humidity, averaging 75% a year and 77% during the summer months, almost the same level you would find in a tropical rainforest. But instead, you're in Mobile. Number 17. Syracuse, New York. Another city near, though not on, the Great Lakes, Syracuse has the distinction of seeing the most precipitation per year. The city gets 110 inches, 279 centimeters of snow, 38.5 inches, 98 centimeters of rain, and generally a damp climate. If that doesn't get you down, the local 29.6% poverty rate just might. Syracuse has been in economic decline for decades now, due to the loss of metals manufacturing, an industry that used to dominate the economy in this area. Number 16. Brownsville, Texas. Brownsville took the number 1 spot in WalletHub's list of the unhealthiest places in the United States. No small feat for a country known for fast food chains and mammoth-sized food portions. The survey looked at categories like food, fitness, healthcare, and cases of premature death. Brownsville scored dead last in food and fitness, with limited access to fruit or vegetables or fitness centers and green spaces. Unfortunately, a lot of the unhealthy population can't get good healthcare either, as 32% of the city under 65 years old is uninsured, compared to 9.5% for the entire country. So why is Brownsville this way? In summary, the city is really poor, with an almost 25% poverty rate, incredibly hot, and has very little investment in public infrastructure or community well-being. Number 15. Lancaster, California. Lancaster has several distinctions as a city, none of which are good. It's been ranked one of the most dangerous cities in California, one of the worst to live in, having one of the longest commutes, the highest divorce rates, and perhaps as a combination of all these facts, the most stressful city in the state. Many of the problems with Lancaster lie in the city's geography and location. A lot of people who live there work in the Los Angeles area, a 70-mile, 113-kilometer at minimum commute away, and simply live in or near Lancaster for the cheap property prices. But it creates a lot of stress and resentment in a population that has to spend at least 3 hours in their car daily. Not to mention the surrounding area is arid, dusty, and really not much to look at. Number 14. Cleveland, Ohio. Forbes ranked Cleveland dead last among 71 U.S. cities for job creation. Once the 5th largest city in the U.S., Cleveland has had similar struggles as many other Rust Belt towns after the death of manufacturing, but it has fared worse than many. The city's education spending has plunged downwards, leading to difficulties for local residents seeking to move on up in life. The city ranks near the bottom of transit spending too, making it hard for people to commute. Both those factors are unattractive for new businesses looking into the area. As executive director of Policy Matters Ohio, Amy Hanauer said, if a company wants to come somewhere, they want to know they can get well-trained workers. They want to know that those folks can get to work. Not to mention that decades of local corruption have led to questionable city choices, like the building of Berkey Lakefront Airport, which takes up significant lakefront property and is used exclusively for charter and business flights. Many locals think this land could be put to better use to serve all of Cleveland. Number 13. Montgomery, Alabama. Montgomery is the state capital of Alabama, and that's pretty much it. It has a unique combination of the limited amenities of a small city with all the big city problems: property crime, poverty, and the occasional soundtrack of gunfire in the distance. However, one of the most frequent complaints about Montgomery is about the schools. According to the latest U.S. News & World Report, Alabama ranks 44th in education, which is already pretty bad. And Montgomery County ranks as the worst area in Alabama when it comes to public schools, with 14 schools failing. Lots of private schools have opened up to fix the problem, but this leaves a lot of working and lower middle class residents stuck. The presence of so many private and magnet schools means the richest quarter of the local population doesn't care about the area's public schools. This results in one of the most underfunded educational systems in the country. Number 12. Jackson, Mississippi. Jackson, located in, you guessed it, Mississippi, which frequently ranks last on state lists for income, health, education, and several other factors, has a lot of unfortunate distinctions. It's the 8th most miserable city in the US based on a variety of factors, including a poverty rate of 32.2% and an unemployment rate of 7.7%. Some cities in a bad spot are finding themselves on an upward swing due to cheap housing prices and people moving in, but that's not the case in Jackson. In fact, it's third on a list of poor US cities getting poorer, with the median income actually going down over the last few years. That's the result of a slow-motion death spiral that's gripped Jackson for decades. Regulation chipped away at the tax base, municipal services crumbled, and as the city decayed, residents fled to the suburbs. Fewer people meant even less funding, and the cycle just kept going, dragging the city down with it. Number 11. Memphis, Tennessee. According to WalletHub, Memphis, the birthplace of rock and roll, is also the most dangerous city in the US. And that's not just due to violent crime, which is off the charts. The city has a homicide rate of 43 per 100,000 people, putting it right between South Africa and Haiti. In fact, Numbeo found that Memphis is the 10th most dangerous city in the world, and it has the dubious distinction of being the only US city on the top 10 list. Memphis also ranked worst for traffic deaths in 2022, as Consumer Affairs found that there were 33 car-related deaths for every 100,000 people in Memphis. Weather that produces sudden rainstorms and fog out of nowhere. It's also due to weird local rules that state you don't need a driver's license to buy a car, and you don't need to get your car inspected. So next time you're driving through Memphis, maybe don't. Number 10. Shreveport, Louisiana. Many people who grow up in Shreveport try to find ways to leave Shreveport. It's hard to pick what's more frustrating: the poverty and stagnant job market, the crime rate, the mosquitoes, or the fact that the power goes out every time a gust of wind blows on the power lines. Things have gotten so bad that the Louisiana Public Service Commissioner, Foster Campbell, asked for a review of SWEPCO's practices, the company that handles power for most of North Louisiana. Perhaps the saddest distinction Shreveport has is that it ranked as the 156th safest city in the country out of 182. The local paper actually ran this headline, pointing out that this made Shreveport the safest urban area in Louisiana. Why? Well, because elsewhere in Louisiana is number 9, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Baton Rouge ranked as the 179th safest city in the US out of 182 cities. That's pretty horrible, as is its location in Louisiana's infamous Cancer Alley, an 85-mile, 137-kilometer stretch of land along the Mississippi River between Baton Rouge and New Orleans, where cancer rates are almost twice the national average. That's mostly due to a lot of petrochemical plants and operations in the area, which belch toxic gases and fossil fuels into the atmosphere and the river water day after day. Antonia Yuhas, Human Rights Watch's senior researcher on fossil fuels, summarizes the problem harshly but clearly. The fossil fuel and petrochemical industry has created a sacrifice zone in Louisiana. Number 8. Houston, Texas. Imagine Dallas, but with more bugs and humidity. Oh, and dirt. That's right, Lawn Start ranked Houston the dirtiest city in the country based on a combination of pollution, living conditions, infrastructure, and overall cleanliness. And we're not kidding about the bugs. Houston ranked first in household cockroach infestations, thanks mostly to its heat, humidity, and, well, not great standard of cleanliness. It was also the third city in metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions from local facilities, and fifth in sewage disposal breakdowns. All the lists no one ever wants to be a part of. It also ranks as the riskiest state for homeownership, thanks to a combination of floods, 64% of homes at risk, extreme heat, 98% of homes at risk, and hurricanes. Number 7. Detroit, Michigan. Unfortunately, Detroit has gotten such a bad reputation as a city that it's almost a punchline. Though its leaders have invested in regenerating its downtown area, it consistently ranks as one of the poorest cities in the country, with a median income of just over $24,000 per capita as of 2023. The glory days of the nation's former car manufacturing capital are long gone. And its residents aren't doing too well outside of finances either. Detroit ranked as the least healthy city in the US. It has the highest percentage of adults with diabetes, 18.2%, the highest percentage of adults with obesity, 45.5%, and the highest percentage of adults who smoke, 28.5%. It also has the second highest rate of heart disease deaths per 100,000 residents, and the second highest rate of opioid overdose deaths per 100,000 residents. So, if you want to live a long, healthy, successful life, this probably isn't the best place. Number 6. Toledo, Ohio. Many cities in the Rust Belt have been hit hard. But Toledo? As some locals who moved away would say, it's the Ohio of Ohio. Though some things have been improving, the violent crime rate still sits at 1,146 per 100,000, double the national average. And the poverty rate of the city is more than double the national rate, 23.3% compared to 11.5%. Its lakeside location has also caused some issues in the past, as toxic algae blooms contaminated the entire water supply, and residents were unable to drink, bathe, cook, or brush their teeth. Number 5. Baltimore, Maryland. The story of Baltimore's decline is an all-too-familiar one for many U.S. cities. Deindustrialization got rid of many decently paying jobs, rapidly increasing poverty and its associated problems, including the most overdose deaths of any U.S. city, with around 1,000 in 2023, 921 of those from fentanyl. However, Baltimore is finding it almost impossible to bounce back due to a geographic anomaly. It is one of the country's only independent cities, meaning it's not part of a county, so it literally can't grow beyond its current boundaries. So when some neighborhoods got crime-ridden and bad, and we mean bad, as Baltimore often ranked second or third in US cities with the most crime, and people left, they just left the city entirely. And the city literally can't annex the surrounding areas or expand into them to try to rehaul itself. Number 4. Odessa, Texas. Don't drink the water. That's one of the first things every Odessa resident will tell you. See, what brought Odessa wealth and overpriced rent was the local oil and gas industry. It also brought benzene and hydrogen sulfide, releasing it into the air and water table. In 2022, air analysts smelled something like rotten eggs in the air, then found that hydrogen sulfide levels had risen to 82 times their acceptable levels for residential areas. At high levels, hydrogen sulfide causes respiratory infections, dizziness, nausea, headaches, decreased lung function, and increased cancer risks. As a bonus, there's also a Superfund site in the area, a site designated for cleanup by the EPA, contaminated with chromium left over from chrome plating operations in the 60s and 70s. As for the upsides of the area, well, it's honestly hard to find any. It's dusty, windy, with a high crime rate, and not a whole lot to do. The usual bonus of cities no one hates is crazy low housing prices, but Odessa doesn't even have that. Home prices average around $500,000. Number 3. Gary, Indiana. Gary, used to be known as the murder capital of the US. However, while it's still shady, crime has fallen a bit in recent years. That might be because since 1960, 61% of Gary's population has just left. Another Rust Belt town that started rapidly declining when its primary industries left, Gary still actually has a steel mill in operation, and that makes matters worse. The US steel plant emits nitrogen oxide and soot, leaving what visitors describe as a horrible metallic smell in the air, leading to lots of nose and throat irritation in the local population. It's also the plant with one of the highest carbon pollution footprints in the US, emitting 10.3 million tons of greenhouse gases in 2021 alone. As you can imagine, this makes Gary a difficult place to be. Number 2. Camden, New Jersey. People who grew up in towns around Camden were taught one thing: avoid driving through Camden, especially at night. For about 2 decades, Camden has been ranked between number 1 and number 5 on lists of most dangerous US cities. Your chance of becoming a victim of violent crime there is 1 in 59. But that's not the only reason why this 70,000-person town has lost almost half its population since 1950. The city's largest former industries and employers, RCA Victor, Campbell's Soup, and the New York Shipbuilding Corporation, all either shut down or moved most of their industrial activity outside of Camden to avoid unions. This caused massive unemployment, which in turn led to poverty, substance abuse, and increased crime. Though efforts have been made to turn the city around, Camden's current poverty rate still sits at around 28.5%. And finally, number 1. Pharr, Texas. The 80,000-person city of Pharr is one of the poorest places in the country. The median household income is approximately $32,000, while almost 38% of residents make under $25,000. This would be bad enough for most cities, but in Pharr, it's just the beginning. Pharr also ranks incredibly low when it comes to healthcare access, 500th in the country, family and food security, 496th, environmentally, 483rd, and in terms of economic stability, 475th. Basically, it doesn't crack the top 450 cities in the US on almost any metric, except possibly housing affordability. But after hearing all this, investing in a home there shouldn't sound like too good of an idea anyway. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see more videos like this, then please consider subscribing and turn on notifications. It really does make a difference. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time on MatPack.